understand how some of the, like majority teachers feel when they go into minority schools, because I felt the same way, but it was like kind of backwards, the opposite. But it was, and now I'm adjusted. So in the beginning of the first few months, I was a little bit like cultural shock.
Can you share with us a little bit more about that cultural shock?
Yeah.
Describe the linear, the community in over there on that side of town, and in the culture of the school.
Right. Well, like I always said, for me, it was like I could see those kids myself growing up, because I'm from Mexico, so I came to the U.S. when I was 15. I couldn't speak a word of English, and I learned at Memorial, and so I could see myself reflected in all those kids, and that's why I think I was able to adjust to them so quickly and work with them so successfully. Plus, the training that we got at ATEP. So my first couple of years at Lanier were really good. Like they were wonderful. I was having so much fun, and we were doing all these activities, scavenger hunts, stations, hands-on activities, projects, all these wonderful things, because I could connect with the kids really easily. When I came here, I find the population is different, the teaching methods are different. So it was in the beginning, I wanted to implement my scavenger hunts and my stations and my this and all my projects, and students weren't used to that much, because they were more used to like, here's the work, and then they're so self-driven to do it. They don't need any motivation. They are already, they do it and they get it done and they turn it in. So they were like, do we have to go outside? And then in the beginning, they were like taking pictures of all the stations and coming back inside of the room and doing it in the room. And I was like, wow. It was very different. But now it's just like, like I was like, no, we do have to go outside. We have to move. I started motivating them in a different way. So now they like it. They go outside and they do it. And it's not a big deal. But in the beginning, it was difficult for me to adjust, not only for me, but I guess for both of us to adjust to each other, because I had to adjust to them, but they also had to adjust to me. So at one point I was like, do I just not do scavenger hunts? Do I just not do stations? Do I just like give them packet after packet? And I was like, no, that's not who I am, and I'm gonna be coming to work and being bored every day if I do that. So I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna continue trying to encourage them to do it. And eventually it got better. But it is very different.
And the student population, what are the demographics here and compared to
well, here we have about 30% economically disadvantaged, versus at Lanier it was like the majority, more than 90%. So the population is very different. As far as the ethnicity, I think it's Lanier. It was like more than 90% Hispanic, then like 3% African American, and then like 5% white. So here it's like about 50% white, and then about 30-something Hispanic, and about 20 African American. So it's a little bit more diversified here, and but the majority is it's white.
And what about English learners?
I was surprised, because at Lanier, being that I went through that experience myself, they try to give me all the English learners, so I had a lot of them. Here I only for the longest time I only had one student that's an English learner, and now I have two. But it's the population. I know in the school it's increasing, but as a teacher I only have two students this year. But now that they know that like I like working with that type of population, they're considering giving me more of that population for next year.
Okay.
Do you want to go over you all?
Well, we can explain to you basically the process what we're going to be doing. We're going to start with a set of questions, and then we'll do the classroom observation, and we're going to be recording and the purpose of the visit is to record, your teaching practices, what you're doing. ATE, as you know, is 100% externally funded. So we always have to keep up with data and have evidence of the good teaching practices, documenting what our project participants have learned, and now that you're in the field, we want to come and see it in action. And everything that we take back with us, the recording, the notes, is going to serve for purposes of evaluation purposes of the program to inform the work that we're doing at the university, and then research. We have always the professors, Dr. Belinda Flores, the principal investigator for ATE, and other professors that are looking at the different projects that we have from different lenses. So we'll go back and look at this information, the recordings, the data, do an analysis, and it's going to serve for some of the studies that we're doing.
Okay.
So that's that's the reason that one of the reasons that we're here. And basically, we're going to be utilizing the cultural efficacious observation protocol, which has been developed by ATE, by the staff members and faculty members working together. We have 8 dimensions, and Effie will go over each one of the dimensions in a little bit, but we also have some questions, open-ended questions that we would like to ask you. And I know you have a very good experience, because now you can share with us, your experience at Linear Elementary, where the population is very different from this school. So
Yes.
based on your experience at Linear and then your experience here, can you tell us how do you advocate for students? When you were, and I guess we can start by your prior experience. What are some of the things that you did to advocate for the students that you were working, specifically for the English learners, the students that come from a low socioeconomic background, and any other students?
At Linear, I was teaching geometry. The last couple of years, I was teaching geometry, and then geometry stopped being a tested area. So I stayed in geometry, but what they were doing is we were having after-school tutorials for the English language learners, and I would be doing the Algebra 1 tutorials for them, since they were going to be testing on the Algebra 1, and a lot of them really were struggling in the classroom, because even though they may know the math, they were struggling with the language. And so they were sending them to me after school, and we were doing tutorials, and of course I tried to continue talking to them in English as much as I could, but of course if they would get stuck with something that they couldn't understand, then I would easily translate 1 or 2 words, and that way they could get up to date. I had several experiences where, as a teacher, I was criticized, and I don't know if you want me to share those as well with other teachers, but I remember one time I was tutoring the students, and we were doing mostly in English, but then of course I would say a few words in Spanish as well. And then an English teacher came, and she was white, and she was like, well, you are the reason why our students are not learning English, because you're talking Spanish to them, and you shouldn't be talking Spanish to them. And I said, ma'am, with all due respect, these kids are going to be testing next week, and if I had to speak Chinese to them, I would, because they need to pass. And right now that is the priority, and I understand they have to learn English, because I myself went through that, and I eventually understood the language. But right now they need to feel comfortable, they need to feel ready for that test. So I do understand your concern, but they will pick up the language. They just, right now that's the priority. And she was just like, she didn't even know who I was, but then she was like, oh no, that's okay, I'm not saying, and then she tried to fix it up. But I try to advocate a lot, because I myself grew up in that situation, and I remember coming from Mexico with all this math background, but sometimes I couldn't really understand the language. So I could see why sometimes they get behind is not so much because they have the lack of skills in math or science, it's because of the language struggles that they have. And I try to advocate because I went through that myself.
Did you have any leadership roles at the school, or can you share with us how did you demonstrate leadership, the leadership as a teacher,
Yes.
specifically in meeting the needs of English learners and students in this community?
I was part of the Texas Literacy Initiative, TLI. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's a federal program that provides funds to Title I schools to improve literacy. And I was part of that team. There was only 4 of us in the school that were part of that team, and we did a lot of training on how to increase literacy in the classroom, especially for the type of populations that we worked with, because we actually studied one of the research studies that they actually came up with, saying that kids that grow up in poverty have, I think it's like millions of less literacy than kids that grow up in a higher economic advantage. So we try to advocate through TLI, and what we would do is we would do writing in the classroom. So that's one of the things that I actually brought over from Lanier. And even though this is a different type of population, I still implement it in my warm-ups and exit questions. So like for my warm-ups, instead of just having a question where they can solve mathematically, I actually put a question where they have to write sentences explaining the process, not just doing the process. So that's one of the things that I started implementing at Lanier, but I continued implementing because I think it's a wonderful way to continue improving literacy in any situation.
Now, looking at the needs of the English learners and the other diverse population at Lanier, describe what was your role as a change agent. Did you feel that you were a change agent at the school?
Yes, and I know this is my first year here, but maybe that's one of the things that I miss the most of being in that type of school with that type of population, is that I felt like I was making a difference every day in kids' lives, and knowing that they could come to me, didn't matter what language they spoke or what situation they had going on at home, knowing that they can come to me and ask me questions, and I would be there to always help them, made me feel every day like I was being fulfilled in what I was doing. And again, I was helping those students that were going to take the EOC, and those were not even my students, but at the end of the year they came and they were like, I passed the test. And so they came to me, and that just felt so good that I wasn't even their teacher, and they came to me thanking me for helping them pass the EOC for algebra. So I felt like I was making a difference every day.
Now, what are some of the things that you did, or how did you ensure that equitable opportunities were available in the classroom for your English learners and other students and at the campus?
Yes, always trying to be fair, of course, but when it comes to, for example, I was teaching one class, and it was a pre-GT class, but I had a very diverse population in that class. I had the GT students mixed with the pre-AP students, and then I had about 1/3 of them being English language learners as well. So I had a very diverse population, and I had to do a lot of differentiation for them, because the pre-AP students, they like the style of everything organized, and the GT, they like to do all the crazy activities, and then my English language learners wanted to participate as well, but of course with the language struggles. So I try to do a lot of group work, and what I do in my classroom, and even I do it now, is that I change my seating arrangements every month. So every month they come in and they know I call it right here at the entrance. every month they will say new seats, and then they have to come and check their seats. And I also have different layouts of the room. And what I do is I put them in groups sometimes, and in groups they're going to be mixed. They're not always going to be with the same people. And I always do that from the beginning of the school year, so that, you know, they know that that's the expectation and they know that's going to happen. And I tell them in the beginning, be very flexible, because you're going to be changing seats about 10 times. So putting them in different groups helps the English language learners. And because that's the way I learned to pick up the language. I remember in high school, I didn't want to hang out with all the people that spoke Spanish, because I said if I keep hanging out with them, I'm never going to pick up the language. So I try to make friends with people that only spoke English, and that really helped me pick it up quickly. So with the students, I try to put them in different groups where not always they're going to be with somebody that speaks Spanish, so they have to challenge themselves to speak the language.
Now, can you share with us some of the activities or professional development that you receive at UTSA through your teacher preparation program, through ATE, that prepared you to work specifically with English learners?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of ones, you know, of course, ATE has a lot of them. But I remember there was a few for English, specifically for our English language learners. And I think it was combined with the spec ed. So I remember that one was pretty good. I picked up a lot of strategies that, you know, work not only for spec ed, but also for English language learners. For example, we do vocabulary, and in our vocabulary, we always put the picture, the definition, and you know, the picture also helps the English language learners and the special ed and everybody. I'm a visual person, so I like to see visuals. So I think that was a lot of the strategies that we learned that could be applied to the English language learners, but it actually helps everybody.
Can you provide us specific examples of ESL strategies that you use with your English learners for teaching them mathematics?
Again, the pictures, the illustrations helps a lot. And then the thing is, when I do participation in class, I'm always calling on students. But when I call on students, they know they have to answer or, you know, ask for help or ask for clarification instead of just shutting down and say, I don't know. So sometimes they answer in Spanish. And I do take the response in Spanish, and then what I do is I translate it for everybody else. Okay, yes, that's very good. 5 is the right answer, or, you know, multiplying by 2 is the right answer. So I always take their answer, even in Spanish. They feel comfortable because they're participating, and then I translate it.
Great. Okay, I know the class is about to start, so we're going to be using the observation protocol, culturally efficaciousness observation protocol, with 8 dimensions that we have, where we're looking at diversity, understanding the ethnic identity of the students, the social interactions of the classroom, you know, that the classroom is a safe environment, the language development, just looking at the content that you're teaching, the instruction, and the assessment. So it's, and we'll give you a copy of this, but you know, you can just do what you do every day. Don't.
I'm gonna record the class. Your faces are not gonna be in part of the recording, so just relax. Just everything's fine. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I am gonna be on the camera, so I take the dress off. But you guys are gonna be fine, okay? You're not gonna be in the camera. Some of you girls are like, why didn't you tell us so we can put on the makeup, right? Ours looks really good. So as you guys are working on the warm up, I'm gonna just do the attendance, and then as you guys are doing that, please, let's pull out 12.3. I wasn't here yesterday. You guys work on 12.3. The answers were posted online just for you to check your work. But let's take out 12.3, and we're going to open it up for questions if you guys have any questions before you turn it in. Okay, so 12.3, and then we're going to do a scavenger hunt outside, but I'll explain that when we're getting ready to do that, okay? So for now, let's get started ready with 12.3 as I do attendance. questions in a second. Everyone's here. Don't forget 2 sentences and the question as well on the warm-up.
Wait, can you put the warm-up on?
Yes, the warm-up. She's coming back, all right. Those of you that went online to check your answers, for some reason page 3 did not come up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it was.
It was the previous one. Yes. So we're gonna go over those because if you go online, if you notice, if you go online, page 3. Yeah, if you go online, page 3 was the wrong one. So we're gonna go over page 3. So if you have questions over page 3, that was the old page 3. So if you went online, I'm glad you noticed that. So take out 12.3 and we're going to be going over the last page. Now, any questions on the first 2 pages? I know I posted the answers anyway, but if you have any questions, let me know. So I know on question 5, I know my 4th period was saying we got something different and we know it was right because we double check our work. But what happened?
For number 5?
Yes. I'm sorry, 4.
4.
Oh,
They are changing it.
Yes, that was the whole thing. They had to change it 2 inches, right? Because if you did not change it 2 inches, then if you work with those numbers, they're really not the same unit of measure. So you have to change 12 feet 2 inches, which is 144 inches. Okay, so the right answer on that would have been, what would have been the right answer on?
112,896 inches or 9,408 feet.
Yes. And don't forget the high.
Or pi.
Some of you did it both in inches and feet, so that's pretty good. Okay, so up to 11, the answers were posted, so any questions before I move on to the last page? Good?
Number 8. 8.
Oh,
I
I
need a number 8.
8? Oh, that's good. Okay, let's look at 8. All right. Oh, yes, 8. Now I see why. The famous apostrophe. Okay, so we have, first of all, what's the starting point?
The formula.
The formula, right? We talked about it yesterday. First starting point is the formula. So this is going to be the shape of,
Pyramid.
hexagon. Okay, it's a pyramid and the base is going to be hexagon. So the formula for the base, for the pyramid would be
1/3.
1/3. And that means that I have to find my B and I have to find my H. The H is the perpendicular height, remember? So is H going to be 7?
No.
No.
Gonna be.
We have to find it, right? So first we're gonna go ahead and find the base. So to find the area of the base, which formula am I gonna be using? Yeah. 8 divided by 2. Okay? And the A is given to us, so it's 1.7. perimeter being a hexagon, okay? Being a hexagon, what am I going to do to find the perimeter?
Multiply 2 by how many sides do it?
Multiply 2 by
6.
6. So that would be perimeter. So now I'm going to go ahead and put it back into the formula. So it's going to be a bottom 1.7 times perimeter, which would be divided by, and that should give me, let's see, 6.9, was I using the right one? Yes. 10.2. And then the height, I'm also going to need to find the height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using the inside of the cone and create like a little triangle. Right? And they're giving us the 7, which is the hypotenuse. I need to find the height. How much would this be right here?
1.7.
It's 1.7. So now I'm going to be using the Pythagorean theorem to go ahead and find that height. Okay? Hannah? How would you do that?
7 squared minus 1.7 squared equals.
Okay? And what do you get when you do that?
7 squared is 49. 1.7 squared is 2.89.
49 minus 2.89.
26.11.
And then do what? Take the square root of that, which would be?
6.79.
Very good, thank you. Now, I know that most of the times I told you keep it in radicals, but in this case, because they started with decimals, we're going to keep it in decimals. So, and then I know that's why you were asking me, because you were like, how do I do this in radicals, right? Well, this one, it was in decimals, so you can keep it in decimals. So it's 6.79, and then you just put it back into the equation, and it would be 10.2 and 6.79. So when you do that, all of that in the calculator, you should be getting 23.086. So I know that's why you were asking me, because you were like, how do I take the square root into a perfect radical of 46 point something? Yeah, that's probably.
What if we have it in radical form? And we showed like a limit and everything.
That's fine.
We do number 6.
6. Okay, 6. Or 6. Okay, so same concept here. Now the base is going to be what type of shape? Square. So to find the area of the base, Bailey, what do you get?
You multiply the base or the length of the width to get 4 times 4 is 16.
Okay, 16. And then the height, again, is the perpendicular height, so that is not the height, right? We need to find it again using Pythagorean theorem. So let's see, Deborah. How would I find the height? Walk me through it, please.
Half of 4 would be 2, so 6 squared minus 2 squared
Okay?
is 32, and the square root of 32.
Okay. Square root of 32. And we're going to do it, that one it's a perfect radical. So how do we break it down?
2 and 16.
16 and?
2.
16 and 2. We take the perfect square root of 16 is 4 and 2. So 4 square root of 2. Yes? That one was problem 6, right? Okay, now we just put it back into the equation. So this is going to be 4 square root of 2. Put it back into the equation, and we have the equation 1/3 b times h. 1/3 base is 16, and the height is 4 square root of 2. Then we multiply 4 times 16, and then divide it by 3. Okay, so 4, now the other thing here, 16 times 4. 64. 64 square root of 2 divided by 3. Do we simplify it or do we leave it like that?
We do it like
course we're talking about jars. So on the second page, on the last page, we're gonna do question 15. So 15 we have. 15 we have a cylinder. We're talking about volume, okay? Do you have a question?
No, yes. I wanted to know if I was right about the equation. We would have to subtract the half of the sphere, right? Because it's the volume, because volume is on the inside of the sphere.
Right.
Okay.
So yes, when it comes to volume, and yesterday we talked about when it comes to volume and difference from surface area, and that's why I had the warm-up question of what's the difference between surface area and volume. When it comes to volume, on volume we do have, if the figure's on the outside we do add it, if the figure's on the inside we subtract it. So it's pretty straightforward. When it comes to surface area, it's not always the case, okay? So on volume, on question 15, we're going to go ahead and say, first of all, and that's what I was telling my fourth period, I want you guys to be very organized when you're working on this, because tomorrow you guys have a quiz. And I won't be able to give you any partial credit if I see something like this on the quiz. If I see something like that on the quiz, I'm not going to be able to give you any partial credit because I don't know what's going on. Okay? So please, let's be very organized on your work so that I can at least, if it's not 100% complete, correct, I can give you some partial credit. And what do I mean by organized? This shape is actually going to be two shapes together. So first we have the cylinder, and then we have the half of the sphere. So we're going to stay organized. The cylinder. First I'm going to put the formula for the cylinder. What's the formula for cylinder? Now, pick somebody else, please. Bailey. Bailey, what's the formula for the sphere?
4 pi r3 cubed divided by 3. Then you have to divide that again by 2 because you're going to subtract it in halves.
Okay, good. I'm going to make that note on the side. Divide by 2 again, so I can do that at the end. Yes? Okay. Bailey, pick somebody, please. Who?
Olivia.
Olivia? For the cylinder, how do I find the B? Which is the area of the base?
Isn't it like a radius?
The area of the base is what shape?
Radius sounds like height.
Okay, so the B is the area of the base, right?
Pi r squared.
Very great. Pi r squared. So now we're going to go ahead and say radius is 3, so we're just going to go ahead and say V is equals to 9 pi. Olivia, pick somebody, please. Who? Okay, go ahead. Ainsley, what is the height of the prism? 9. Very good. Pick somebody. Who? Okay. What's next?
Then you if it's all surface cylinder.
Okay, so which is
So
it?
it'd be u times 9 over 9 pi, and that'd be 81 pi.
Very good. 81 pi. Go and pick somebody, please.
Sarah.
Sarah. Okay, Sarah. On the half a sphere, go ahead and walk me through it as far as what I already know the radius, so what would I do?
So you're gonna do 9 times 4, because the radius is, you're gonna do 9 cubed.
Okay, let's put it together. 4 pi, the radius is how much?
3.
3. I'm sorry. It's okay. And then 3, notice here is 3 cubed. So what's 3 cubed?
3 times 3.
Which would be? 27 times 4. Can we do it all in the calculator?
It's 108.
Divided by 3.
Is 36.
So this is going to be 36
Pi.
pi. But my little note says divide by 2 again because it's only half of the sphere.
18 pi.
18 pi. I got it for you.
No, we don't.
Now, did we decide we had to
And the answer
subtract?
is 63.
Subtract. So we're gonna do 81 minus 18.
It's 63 inches or pi inches. Pi
Inches
inches.
cubed.
Pi inches. Pi inches cubed.
Okay. Got it?
Yes.
Yes?
Inches pi cubed.
Inches, pi cube, pi.
Say thank you. Could you put inches pi cubed or no?
No.
No?
I'll put pi first, then inches cubed.
So if I put that on my quiz tomorrow, it would be wrong.
Good question. If you put what?
63 inches pi cubed.
I would have to talk to you and say, why did you do this? And then if it was like something like, oh, because it happens to me sometimes. Like sometimes I just switch the letters, but if I know the right answer. Yeah, and they're comfortable too. Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, any other questions before we turn it in? Because I'm gonna get ready to start explaining the Scavenger hunt.
Can you please do 16?
Okay, I had the second one.
Yeah.
Same one? Okay, last one, and then we'll go to the Scavenger hunt, okay? Okay, Sarah, pick somebody please, on that side.
Carl.
Thank you, Sarah. Did you pick Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay, I said thank you, Sarah. Carol, back there. 16, my starting point, Carl.
The radius is 6.
Okay, Carl, formula.
Okay, hold on. So like the sphere 4 over 3 pi r cubed like divided by 2, right?
And then I'm gonna make a note, divide by 2 because I only have half of it, right? So I'm gonna make a note. And then what's the other formula?
1 over 3 base times height.
Okay, pick somebody please.
Rodney.
Rodney. Sphere and cone. Notice I'm labeling everything. So tomorrow's quiz, I want to see if you have a shape that is composed of 2 shapes, it's just a composite figure. I want to see you label it.
Okay, I have a question because this is how I put it on my paper. Like, you know how you put that note to the side divide by 2? What if like you put like the number, like you didn't like put like you put a note there, but it's like different. Like it's so hard to have it part of the equation. Like, do you not want it like that or no? Like if you have to divide by 2 as part of the equation.
You could like make it into all an equation, and
like
you would have, what you would do is, it would be actually, if you divide by 2, it would be like multiplying this by 2. So it would be that divided by 6. Some people see that relationship. I don't always like to take that shortcut because when we do variables like x, y, and all those, it's not an easy shortcut. So I would rather you see the process than the shortcut. I want you to do this right here and do it at the end.
Okay.
Because if not, you could make a mistake early on during the problem, and then the rest of the work that you did is not going to be good because you made the mistake early on.
Okay.
Question?
No, it just get called on me, so.
Oh, they called on you, that's right. We forgot that they called on you. Okay, so the question is, Rodney, for the cone, how do I find the B?
For the count. So that's you're gonna do pi r squared.
And that would be?
36 pi.
There you go. Okay, so that's the B. Call on somebody, please.
Oh.
So then you would multiply it by 17.
Okay, 17, very good. 17, in this case, it is the perpendicular height. So 17, yes, so it would be 1/3. And then the base would be,
36 pi.
and the height 17.
And then you multiply, you get 2, you get 612, and then you divide by 3, and you get 204.
Very good. So the cone is 204
Pi.
pi.
You want me to do the next here?
Now I need to do the sphere. Pick on somebody, please. On that side now. me through this, please.
Cone, volume. Wait, are you asking me?
On the sphere.
Okay. Let me calculate.
Walk me through writing it here and then we'll do
Oh,
it.
you have the 4 on the pi, and then the radius is 6, and then cube, and divide by 3.
Okay, so now let's put it in the calculator. 6 cubed. Pick on somebody's answer.
How about Alec?
Alex, put it in the calculator and give me the answer, please.
260.
216? Is that what we got?
Yes.
Okay. And then that's going to be pi. Then do you add or subtract?
Wait.
Oh yeah, see that my little note, I'm telling you, if you don't pay attention to that little note.
Yeah, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
So then what do we do?
Oh wait, I have to do the multiplication.
Times 4.
Oh, okay, well then 260 times.
You have to divide 260
You have to do times 4 and then divide by 3.
Oh, okay.
And then divide by 2.
144
What is it again?
144 pi.
Okay, what?
I got 144.5.
Yeah, that's what I got.
No, I got it, I got 140.
Yeah.
I got 144 pi.
What's 44 pi?
I think
It's 144 pi.
it's
It's 288 and then you divide by 2?
Yes.
144 pi. And then do you add or subtract? So the answer would be?
I got 348 pi cubed.
Okay, so now let's go ahead and,
I have a question, because I realized that I forgot to make the column have the pi in it. And so if I would have put 144 pi, 204 tomorrow, what would have happened tomorrow?
well, again, if you're showing me all the work and I see that something is small, I can give you partial credit as long as you're being organized with the work and I can see what's going on.
You pass it
So
up.
that's fine. Yes, pass it up, please, pass it up.
Oh, my bad. They go, wait, no, wait.
Alright, you forgot to put the game on it.
I went during the Comic-Con and it was so funny.
It's front and back, so it's about 8, 9 questions. But it's easy, so it might be about 25 minutes to stand on it. Alright, so scavenger hunt, let me explain the directions, guys, so that you can go ahead and start going outside to the scavenger hunt. Let me tell you how this is going to work. You have a paper you picked up when you came in, and it has on one side 10 problems, and then on the other side 12 problems. The one that has 10 problems says scavenger hunt number 1. The one that has 12 problems is scavenger hunt number 2. Scavenger hunt number 1 is going to be posted against the wall that is parallel to the rows of the desk, so it's going to be on that wall. And the way you're going to do it, you're going to do groups of 2. And there's 29 people in the group right now, so there's going to be one extra person that can either work alone or add up to another group. But I don't want a lot of groups of 3 because what we're going to do is scavenger hunt number 1 you should be able to complete. It should be completed because that's a medium level scavenger hunt. Then when you guys finish scavenger hunt 1, scavenger hunt 2 is going to be perpendicular to the parallel hall. So it's going to be right here by the restroom. And when you finish scavenger hunt 1, you can start scavenger hunt 2. And then at the end of class, when I call everybody back into the room, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you have both of your names on the paper and put it in the tray. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grade it and see which groups have the most questions correct. So it's not about speed or how many you get the most. It's about how many are correct. Question?
Okay, so like if you don't like finish it all, you just
Yeah, even if it's not 100% completed, it's going to be based on how many questions are correct. The other thing is gonna be groups of 2. One person's gonna be writing, so when you create your group of 2, make sure you pick the person that has the better handwriting, because that would give you more chances of me understanding the work and giving you that correct.
Only using one paper?
One paper for every 2. The other person is gonna have a calculator, and if you need a formula chart, you can use it. I don't think you need it, so it's only 2 formulas. But the other person's gonna be doing calculation, and the other person's gonna be writing. One question?
We have a group of three.
Well, only one group of 3, but
Wait, does anybody else want a group of 3?
Being reasonable to be able to do it.
Okay, guys, let me tell you how this is gonna work. I need mostly groups of 2. So pick your groups of 2. If somebody doesn't have a group, stay with me here, and then I'll put you with somebody else that doesn't have a group, okay? But any questions before we start going? No questions?
Wait.